What's up, guys? Welcome to Vintage Genetics, where it is all about classic bodybuilding. And today we are going to do a Q&A. And I'm always going to start the questions with the official members of the Vintage Genetics channel. Obviously, I really appreciate everybody who watches the videos, who subscribes to the channel. But for people who want to put in some extra support, YouTube made it possible to become a affiliated member with the channel, and that's very possible. You go to you see the page right here. You see in this community tab, for example, that you see all my posts, and some of those posts are for members only. For example, when I want to do a Q&A with the members only or a live video with the members only, that's possible. So if you click on this join button, you're able to become a member, and I will see that you are a member, and when you then ask a question, I will make sure to make that a priority in a Q&A video. So let's get started with the first member, called Georgian. Hello Wes, hope you are doing good. What do you consider the best for muscle growth? Heavy weight for 5 to 6 reps or normal weight for 13 to 15 reps? Honestly, you have to do both rep ranges. And some people like to focus only on heavy training, some people like to do a lot of volume, but in my opinion, combining both is the best way. I've always trained this way personally, but to make it easy, you simply have to, for example, if you do five sets on a bench press, the first 3 sets you could consider a warm-up. Then set number 4 will be your heaviest set of around 8 to 10 reps. You go to failure on the 10th rep, and then you pick the last set, set number 5, and that will be the back off set, but then you're able to hit 12 to 15 reps. So you hit both rep ranges, but you choose 20% less weight on the back off set, and that way you can hit both rep ranges and go to failure on both of them, and then you will have optimal muscle growth. So don't choose for one, choose for both of them. All right, next question by The Double. What is your opinion about the beta-ecdysterone? Well, I actually have to look that up. So I actually looked it up, and apparently it's a plant-based steroid, and they actually in research compared it to testosterone and stuff, but only in rats it showed even a greater benefit compared to testosterone for muscle mass. But humans are very different, and it's actually in insects the ecdysterone or ecdysterone. Ecdysterone. Yeah, I think it's a difficult pronounceable word. That is in insects the testosterone for them. So for humans is testosterone, for insects is that compound. There's not a whole lot of research on it, and the research I found was on rats. And when I see the research, I mean the reviews on a site that sells it, a lot of people are quite happy about it, but that's also because possibly of the placebo effect. And some people say they don't notice anything, and trust me, if it was stronger than a regular steroid, you would notice it pretty much right away, especially if you haven't used anything before. And you also have to take it orally, which means it already has to bypass the stomach, the intestines, the liver before it can even get to the cells where it needs to be. So that's why a lot of steroids are injectable, to bypass all those barriers to make it work right away in the bloodstream. So I'm not sure, I've never heard about it, and I honestly think if it really did work, we would be hearing about it a lot more. So that's my take on that interesting compound, which I've never heard about. All right, next question by Yaroslav Horak. Hello Wesley, I'm a big fan. Really admire your state-of-the-art physique and wish you all the best in your future competitions. Thank you, I really appreciate that. I especially admire very well-developed Serratus. I appreciate that once more. Double pullover for the win. My question is, do you do any Serratus-specific work? Which exercises you feel target this area the most? In my opinion, I've never felt them better than when doing dumbbell pullovers. Not even the cable pullovers, but the dumbbell old school pullovers. When you do this, you automatically can already see, well, I'm not very conditioned right now, but you can see these are the serratus muscles. Just imagine doing a pullover all the way back, stretches those out, and when you go, I can literally contract it like this. The movement that a dumbbell pullover does is going all the way like this with the lats, and these are attached to that movement. So if you go very heavy with good form, with an enormous stretch, using good time on the tension, obviously, you will develop the serratus muscle. That's how I did it. So dumbbell pullovers for sure. Next question by Mac Dooley. How often do you think about not staying golden, taking all the other drugs most bodybuilders take, like AGH and all that blanks? Why did you stay golden? Because I notice, well, stay golden. It's interesting that you bring that term up. I always use it at the end of the video, but it means more than just staying classic, like the golden era guys. It means that you have to, think about bodybuilding not as trying to put on as much muscle as possible, as quick as possible, but first of all, enjoying working out, guys. That's why I began bodybuilding in the first place. I loved working out. I loved seeing progression in my body and strength, and not just in general muscle mass, but in seeing the proportions change. For example, I used to have a very bad upper chest, and doing the correct work for it increased it. Same for the side delts, doing a lot of isolation work made that a lot better. Things like that, and not just doing a lot of the stuff you talked about just to grow in poundage. I never looked at the scale, and I wanted, of course, right now I'm lean bulking and I'm gaining weight slowly. But even if I would stay the same weight for 3 weeks, it's not about that weight on the scale. It's about what you look like in the mirror. Staying golden is being in a different place mentally compared to a lot of bodybuilders who simply want to see that weight on the scale increase, who want to see them get fuller and fuller, bigger and bigger, without taking into account the aesthetics and the reasoning why most people begin in the first place, because they love to train to sculpt their body using the machines and the equipment in the gym. So for me, bodybuilding is not about taking all that stuff to get bigger. It's about enjoying the process and using the tools as little as possible to get the greatest results you can get. So I think I should make a lot of videos regarding this subject as well. But I think there's a lot of bodybuilders nowadays who are more honest about how it truly is going and what should be the best way to do it. So personally, I listened to the podcast by Fuad Abiad. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. The bodybuilding podcast. I highly recommend listening to that one. He does a very funny podcast with Luke Sandow as well. And yes, just check it out and you will know exactly what I'm talking about with regards to being honest about stuff like that. All right, next question by Burke Demirki. Hello Wesley, is it possible to look big and lean by holding water and glycogen into our muscles for people who train without steroids? If yes, how? Another question is it possible to make our abs grow fast by training them every day even if they hurt? For the last part of your question, I wouldn't train the abs every single day to make them grow. Either your conditioning, aka the body fat percentage you have, is a little too high to view your abs, because for some people, you can already see the abs when they are a very high fat percentage, but it really depends genetically where the fat is stored. So for me personally, I have to be pretty low in body fat to be able to really see those separation in the abs. Perhaps for you that's the same thing. And I never really train abs separately heavily. I only do vacuum work most of the time. But yes, train the abs every other day or 3 times a week. Not going too heavy, really focusing on a contraction and a stretch is the best way to go to get some abs in combination with being lean enough. And then for the first part of your question, is it possible to look big and lean by holding water and glycogen naturally? I think what you mean is that you want to carb load, because that's basically what's happening if you want to have water and glycogen in your system. So pretty much having a higher carb diet and add creatine to your supplement regimen, because that literally increases the water retention inside the muscle cells, making you look fuller and bigger. So, and also drinking enough water and taking enough Himalayan pink salt, not just the sodium, not just the white powder, but the actual pink, the colored salt, which is much better for holding on to quality water, exactly the amount that it's needed for health in the body. Because if you take salt and you're not used to it, you will hold a lot extra water. But if you take a lot of salt every single day, according to taste, you won't hold water unnecessarily. You hold just enough water to be hydrated. So that's my tip for that. Right, this is the last member question by M1KO, or Maiko. Hey Wes, do you eat any cheat meals on your lean bulk? If so, do you replace cheat meals with your normal meals? And what are the normal cheat meals you usually eat? Honestly, my cheat meals are simply the meals I usually eat with a higher amount of the carbohydrate source. That's usually what it is. Or I add something on top of the regular meals. For example, I trained chest and triceps a while ago today, a few hours ago. And I had a simple rice meal, 120 grams of uncooked rice worth, with just some fish and 10 grams of oil. It would turn into a cheat meal if I added like a bagel with honey, or two bagels with honey or something like that. That's what I like to do sometimes when I feel like it, especially on a leg day, or perhaps even add a brownie or something. Not too crazy. And when or I eat a meal later on in the day, like the third meal after the workout, instead of having 300 grams of potatoes, I might have like 500 grams of French fries with a salmon steak and some vegetables. But then the carbohydrate source went from 300 grams to 500 grams, and that's to me enough of a cheat meal that I don't crave for anything else, because I also eat quite a lot in general. So the first meal of the day is big. The meals in between are medium sized. The post-workout meal is usually quite big. So I don't really have anything to complain about in terms of cravings for cheat meals. But there's nothing wrong with it if you're in a lean bulk and you're still looking pretty lean, relatively speaking. And then after the workout, you have a slightly bigger meal, especially after a back or a leg day. Nothing wrong with that, as long as your body compositioning over the coming weeks stays relatively lean, because that is what a lean bulk is all about. Next question by, this is actually the most liked question of all the questions that I saw. I asked on the community tab that a Q&A was coming up, and I asked if you wanted to ask me some questions. So this one was at the very top. Hello Wes, are you trying to increase lower lats thickness or mid-back thickness mostly in your workouts? Honestly, both. So, people are quite interested in what weak points I want to improve. The lower lats would be quite nice because, as you can see, they attach here, and for some people, they attach all the way down here. What's most important for me is when I increase the thickness at the bottom, that it will have an illusion that my lats appear to insert a little lower, because when I turn to the back, they do insert much lower than you can see at the front, because they insert literally at the back of my back. So they insert like this, and here my waist is already there, but they insert lower when I turn around. So when the bottom is thicker, it will grow a little bit to the outside and appear thicker from the front as well, by minimal margins. But that's what bodybuilding is all about. And so that's what I'm working on, with a lot of close grip pull downs, for example, but also a lot of rowing. And the mid back thickness also, because my back needs to increase overall in mass, because the front looks pretty good when I do a pose, but from the back, because I'm pretty tall, I simply need a lot of mass in that area. So I'm also doing a wide grip rowing, like the seated row, but then the wide grip to really work the back thickness on the top, and also chest supported bench dumbbell rows with two dumbbells at the same time, really focusing on those middle back muscles. All right, next question by Dragon Slayer 1, or Dragon Slayer. Hi Wesley, what do you think you like the most in your physique, quad sweep or hamstring hang? And again, this is one of the most liked questions. So another weak point question. In my opinion, is the hamstring hang for sure. The quads are actually from the front not that much of a weak point anymore, which I'm very happy about. They are almost in proportion with the upper body. In for example, the front double biceps they are, but when I do back double biceps or side chest, then I need a lot more mass in the hamstrings. So the hamstrings and the glutes are my main focus right now to work on for the Mr. Olympia. Alright, next question by Swole Minion. Should you take creatine while cutting and or taking diuretics? Well, while cutting, you should always take creatine no matter what. So I advise whether you're bulking or cutting to always take the creatine supplement, one of the most proven supplements in the world. It will always benefit you, and a lot of people think that it holds water. Yes, it holds water, but inside the muscle cell and not outside, so not under the skin. So people think when they're cutting down and they want to look great for a photo shoot, they cut out the creatine. You shouldn't do that. Actually, creatine can help you retain more muscle mass because you have more strength while taking the creatine, and with more strength, there's more mechanical tension on the muscle and more, hypertrophy response while cutting down. So don't take out the creatine. And for your diuretics question, I'm not sure why you would combine the two, but I guess if you're a bodybuilder and you're taking diuretics for a bodybuilding show, some people like to take out creatine because, again, they think it holds water in the wrong places. But honestly, take creatine up until the day of the show because it holds water inside the muscle cells intracellularly, which is where you want the water to be. Only if you want to cut weight for a bodybuilding show, for a weight category, and that's what you're using diuretics for, then yeah, drop out the creatine if that's your goal. But otherwise, I wouldn't do that. Next question by Tharu Nava. Do you take any supplements before the training or you just eat your meal? I eat my meal about 2 hours before training, at least 2 hours because I want an empty stomach, and about 30 minutes before training I take a pre-workout. In that pre-workout is beta-alanine, L-citrulline, L-arginine, taurine, caffeine, and maybe something else. But I also always salt the meal that I eat 2 hours beforehand extra, with a little bit of extra to get a good pump. That's what you want in the training. And the pre-workout, I take it mostly for the mental aspect, and also because there are some ingredients in there like the beta-alanine and the L-citrulline that really do help in a workout, in my opinion. And sometimes when there's creatine in the pre-workout, don't waste your money on it because creatine is very cheap and they still price the pre-workout with the same pricing. So that's why they add it in the first place. So almost a third or maybe even half of all the powder in there is worth nothing pretty much. And you're better off taking creatine in a separate supplement form after the training or even in the morning, just not before the workout in my opinion. And have a pre-workout without the creatine in there. And I'm also coming out with a pre-workout myself of the Gladiator supplement line on top of the whey isolate we already have, and other supplements are coming as well. And I make sure to dose them correctly, scientific proven doses with all the supplements I'll be coming out with. So make sure to check out becomegladiator.com to already see what my supplement brand is all about, and a lot more is coming for sure. Next question by Redme. Pink rock salt versus Himalayan pink salt. Are they the same? They're pretty much the same. In my opinion, you should look for the salt with brightest color, with the most color in there. Just make sure it's not colored by the company itself, because they, with a lot of even other products, like even salmon, they color the fish pink to make it look more fresh. But only the true fresh salmon is pink naturally. The other salmon is dyed pink because then it looks like the salmon everybody knows. But honestly, and also with red meat, with minced meat, actually is gray, like the salmon is also gray, but they color it to make it look more appealing. And the same happens with a lot of supplements, with a lot of food items in general. So if you have a choice between the pink rock salt and the Himalayan pink salt, the one that's the most pink naturally is the one you should take because that contains more of the trace minerals. Next question by Indy underscore 011. Should you eat less calories on rest days? Not less calories, maybe a little bit less, but mostly shift the carbohydrates down and the fats upwards because you want the insulin sensitivity to increase overall. And if every single day you have a lot of carbs and little fats, you always have those high blood sugar peaks along with the insulin secretion peaks, and that will decrease insulin sensitivity. You have to think like this: the more stable your body can release insulin, the less your cells will respond to it, the less resistant they will become to it. And that's very good for muscle growth because if your muscle cells are very insulin sensitive, you don't need to produce as much insulin to make their muscle cells absorb all the sugars in your blood alongside with other very important nutrients like the minerals and even amino acids. So taking more fats on a rest day will help in this process. All right, next question by Tommy de Jong. Hi Wes, my question: aren't you afraid that your weight limit will prevent you from reaching your ultimate physique and that you might need to go to open bodybuilding to reach that physique? Honestly, right now I weigh 125 kilos, which probably is close to, well, probably around 276 pounds. That's a high weight, but I'm allowed to weigh 247 pounds on stage. And every single time when I come from a high weight, it's not difficult for me to go back down to the weight limit because a lot of this weight you see right now is, of course, a little bit of fat, like 10 to 15 pounds of pure fat, but also a lot of water weight from beneath the skin and unnecessary water weight in general. And when that is all shaved off and then is all burned off, I weigh at the weight limit. So you have to imagine 1 pound of muscle gain requires a lot of work, a lot of extra water gain and fat gain. Usually, not that much fat gain, but usually a lot of water gain in the lean bulking process, which you will probably immediately lose when you're cutting down. So I'm not afraid that I'll reach a very good physique when I reach the true weight limit of 247 pounds on stage, because up until now, I never reached that yet. I still have 2 to 3 to even maybe 4 pounds of pure muscle to go before I hit my ultimate physique at my weight limit. And even then, I can stay at that weight limit and improve the shape of my physique, the density of my physique, the look of my physique without changing the weight at all. So that's also possible in bodybuilding. So in my opinion, we still have to see my ultimate classic physique. And who knows, in the open class, in the future, maybe distant future, they will move to a way more classic style of bodybuilding, and then the cards are still on the table. The last question of the day is by Yashwar Pagadala. Hi brother, please throw some light on how to deal with constipation when on high protein diets and some strategies that you follow. Many new gym enthusiasts like me might be facing this problem. A lot of people face a problem, not just people who go to the gym, but people in general. A lot of people are bloated. A lot of people are constipated, or their digestion is just not optimal. I'm going to make a whole separate video about this, how to improve your digestion the most optimal way, in my opinion. But to be quick about it, when you eat a lot of protein, you also need a lot of fiber to keep your intestines from working, to have the right movement, the bowel movements, to actually get rid of the toxins and not to get stuck in there. Because the longer the protein is in there, the longer it has time, and also the carbohydrates with that, to ferment, to cause gas, to cause bloating, etc. So either, and that's probably not the case, you're eating too much fiber, or usually it's too little fiber. When you eat too little fiber, your bowels are not stimulated enough to move, and you will keep in all the toxins for longer. When you eat more fiber, and in my opinion the easiest way to add this is psyllium husk fibers. Add them to your oatmeal, to your protein shakes, to your yogurt, to your quark at the end of the day. Like 3 times a day, 5 grams, or 2 times a day, 10 grams, which is what I do. It really makes your bathroom time consistent every single day. Usually the morning and before bed, every single day, the same thing happens. You get rid of the toxins in your body because the bowel movement is consistent, because your fiber intake is consistent as well. On top of that, make sure that the food items you eat, that your body agrees with them. A lot of people cannot take high FODMAP foods, which basically stands for foods that are high, that are difficult for your body to absorb, to deal with, to digest, and they will ferment your gut. Fermentation means that the bacteria will actually convert those carbohydrates to gases, and that causes bloating and also constipation. So the vegetables are usually the cause of this, and vegetables like a lot of broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, garlic, stuff like that, onions, they will, beans, stuff like that will all cause, for most people, constipation and gas in the stomach, so in the intestine as well. That's not what you want, so you want to replace them with lower FODMAP vegetables. You can look at lists, they're on Google, they're all over the internet. Just make sure to have some in your mind already when you want to make swaps for vegetables. Like you can take carrots, cucumber, zucchini, eggplants, most leafy vegetables, green leafy vegetables, simple lettuce, stuff like that. That will all help, lowering the fermentation rate in your gut, less gas, less constipation, and better digestion. Okay, guys, those were the questions of the day, and a lot more will be coming. You can see the lighting right here is new and improved. I am making investments to make these videos of a higher quality. So also this microphone right here, as you can see, it's a very good one, in my opinion. But a lot more is coming, and if you have any questions already, make sure to ask them down below. I'll write the best ones down and the ones with the most likes, and I'll answer them in the next Q&A. Anyway, guys, I really want to thank you for watching, and don't forget to stay golden.